Okay, we're ready with the recording. It's a great pleasure for me. This is the second time I've had a chance to have this panel here from Barbara Cooper King, and it goes without saying, you guys, the firm is well known. It's really a great honor to have all three of you here for a panel. So you've got the questions. The folks here in the room have a little bit of an introduction. We've got a fair number of accounting-focused students again this semester, so
okay, perfect.
Feel free, fire away.
Okay, so we'll just introduce ourselves and give them a little bit of history for each of us.
Absolutely. So, my name is Mike Stevenson. I've been with Barbage for about 10 years. I'm a tax manager, and that's really all I do. I have a couple clients that I do compilations for, but even those I hand off their side to somebody like Danera. I came from Cal Poly over in San Luis. I graduated there with a degree in accounting and finance, and then came back home.
My name is Danera Mian. I'm an audit manager with Barbage Cooper King Dill Hoffman. I've been with the firm about 18 years now. I do only A&A work, which is just accounting and test work. I came to school here at Cal State Bakersfield, and Barbage was looking for staff accountants at the time, and I was fortunate enough to just get hired on as a staff accountant as soon as I graduated, so I've been there ever since.
Hello, my name is Andrew Siebesma, and I am a tax supervisor. 6 years now at the firm. Originally from Visalia, I graduated from Cal State here, management and accounting major. Did the internship with Barbage, and then once I graduated, was able to come on full time. I just do strictly tax.
Yeah, we're just all office neighbors, so we sit right next to each other.
Yes.
So that's why they're the ones that came with me. So I guess we can, I just like to know how many of you are accounting majors? And this is a senior?
Yeah, this is, so we have a sort of a culminating experience senior seminar. This is one of 3 or 4 sections of that class. So everybody in here is graduating with a BS in business administration, and you see here sort of the whole front half of the room is accounting focused.
Perfect. So, and those of you that aren't accounting students per se, hopefully today will be educational for you as well. That's one thing we find is that if you're going to be in business, no matter what you're doing, you're going to deal with accounting on some level. So, do you have some questions you want to go through, or do you just want us to start from the top?
No, go ahead. I'll cherry pick any that you don't get to, but please just go ahead and call out the name of the person who asked the question and answer it however you like.
Okay, well, I'm going to apologize before I butcher everybody's name. So the first one is...
Do you want me to
Yeah, you say that one.
Abdulaziz? Did I say right?
Abdulaziz. Aziz for short. And Aziz Alfreya or Aziz Al-Kushri?
Alfreya.
Alfreya, but they're both not here, but Alfreya is usually right. Go ahead.
Okay,
So this one's for Danera, I guess. So Danera, as an audit manager, you sometimes get asked tough questions to people who you also need to build a relationship with. What is your best advice when it comes to communication?
I guess that's a good question because we do go through some tough questions with clients, and a lot of the times you've already built that relationship with them because we try to put the same people in the same jobs just so that you build that relationship with the client and you gain knowledge from the client. So I think most of the time is just to approach them with, your honest questions as far as, okay, I don't understand this. Maybe I've misunderstood something, how do we resolve this issue? So I don't think it's a matter of, being aggressive with the questions. I think it's just the same way that you speak to them on any other level when you just ask normal questions or you're requesting for information, that you make those tough assessments and those tough questions. So there isn't anything in specific. I think Andrew and I were talking about using common sense when you approach people. It's the same way you approach anybody else. In the sense of gather all your information first, make sure you understand it, so that you make an informative decision as to what your question is going to be, and at that point ask the client the question. So we do ask sometimes tough questions. Sometimes the clients come back and disagree with your assessments. And at that point, you've done your research and you can provide the research to the clients to show why we need to do things a certain way. And a lot of the items are just based on, accounting procedures or auditing standards. And most clients are fairly reasonable once you provide them with the research and how we came to that assessment, that most clients, even if they don't agree, they understand why we have to do things a certain way for financial statement presentation. So,
the kind of to dovetail on that, I think when you're talking to somebody and you're asking them about something that you may not think will go over real well, maybe you're questioning them on one procedure they put in place, or if you're doing an audit or something like that, you're wondering where did this cash go, that sort of stuff. Sometimes it helps to give people background as to what you think the issue is or what your concerns are while you're asking the question. That way it doesn't come off as so much as a personal attack.
right, you're not saying you're wrong. You're saying, in looking at this, we're looking at this is our audit procedure, our required procedure. We have found this. We're just trying to get a better understanding. How did you come about that? So it's not a matter of saying, hey, you're wrong. We should do it this way. It's about providing them the information and letting them know that you're trying to understand, have a better understanding of what has happened in the process.
I think it would be useful for the non-accounting people in here to understand what audit is versus tax versus, I think last time you had a pension
Debbie,
person.
right?
Yes,
She's going to
Debbie
take
was
it
right.
today.
So, but the main, in any accounting firm, you've got audit work and you've got
Right.
tax work, and I think for the non-accounting people here, it'd be useful to just explain what the difference is.
Okay, so for auditing, for example, normally it's the final end product is a financial statement that they're either presenting to a bank for filing purposes or whatnot. So we go in and do an assessment of where we feel the accounts are more riskier than others. Okay, if we have $5 million in cash, that's the risky area. We'll go in and test that specific account. So we'll make an assessment of what we need to test, what we feel we can make an opinion on financials to say these are materially fairly stated so that we can provide a financial statement. In so doing, we perform tests on certain accounts. So we might make a selection of payroll transactions, meaning I want to see the timesheet, I want to see the cash disbursement, the payroll check. So it's going to the source document that we're testing. So it's a lot of testing of accounts, transactions, numbers, to make an opinion on the final product, which is a financial statement, either for the client, for the bank, whatever the need may be. So it's a lot of, give me the source document, how did you come about this? I mean, we look at bank statements, we look at check registers. It's the source document that we look at where we make, where we have the questions, or can you provide me with this? Where's your bank statement? So it's all of the source documents of a business, essentially.
Right, and the end goal of that is simply to present a financial statement, which is the balance sheet, income statement, statement of cash flows, which if you're all business majors, I'm sure you've seen those. It's simply providing that in a format that has a letter that says, we give some level of assurance that these are fairly stated. That's what it comes down to, is just, all the work goes into is just that letter that says these are fairly stated.
Right. So it may be a big audit that's 200 hours of audit work, and all we're presenting is 10 pages of a financial statement. So that's in those senses that we're dealing with the clients on a daily basis while we're out there at the client's office. And so, we're not only dealing with maybe a controller or CFO, we're dealing with the accounting department, with bookkeepers. So communication is key, and knowing how to approach people with your questions is key as well.
And I'd also like to add, I think the good point in that question is a good relationship. I think one of the most part of our job, and most people think of accounting.
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Yeah.
Just because you're answering the question of Aziz, and he's here now.
Okay.
So we're going through the questions that everybody put together, and the first question was yours, Aziz. So I wanted to make sure he knew that you're answering his question. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I liked your thing about a good relationship. That's what I was trying to say. Is a lot of people think accounting just numbers, this bookworm in the corner office doesn't have any interaction with clients. Relationship is probably the most important. If you develop a trust relationship with your client, you're going to be able to ask these questions and get the information that you need. They'll be able to trust you. You'll be able to say, I need to know this. And you don't ever want to be in a I got you, you did this wrong kind of attitude, because we're going to make mistakes too. It goes both ways. So as long as you work, once you build that trust with that client, you're good. You're going to have that relationship. You have the give and take. You might mess up this time. They might mess up the next time. But at the end of the day, they're going to trust you to do the work that they've hired you to do.
Very good. Next question. We'll ask Andrew this one. What do you think is the most satisfying thing about your job? What skills do you think are important to be successful in your career? And this is from Jesus Arenado.
Jesus is over here. You want to raise your hand higher, Jesus? That's Jesus.
Very good. Andrew?
All right. One of my most satisfying things about the job is helping the clients. Able to work with the clients, again, with the relationship building is, there's many times where clients have come to us or to me, and they may have not done things properly. They may, you help, guide them through to a good solution. And sometimes they're coming in really distraught, and they don't know how to get out of this mess that they got themselves in, and they might not even be aware that what they did was wrong, tax-wise. And it's guiding them through there to help them out to find a right path. To say, okay, you listen to their story, listen to how, what their issues are, and helping them get out of it. The skills, I think, again, is building on that relationship, being able to communicate with the clients, building that trust, being personable, being likable, letting them be able to trust you, and is key, I think, to getting a lot of our work done. I think being personable is very good. I mean, if you come in and you have this boring, nerdy client or nerdy accountant, that doesn't really give the back and forth, give and take, it just, I don't know, to me it's just building that relationship is key, and just helping these clients out navigate through their problems and once you do that, they're just so thankful that you have helped them through this issue, and at that point you've probably built a lasting bond that they'll probably use you for years to come and might make referrals, and so it's just building those relationships that is key.
Yeah, that's probably the most satisfying thing about the profession is that we focus a lot in a firm and family-run businesses. We do not only the family-run business, so maybe the S Corp or the partnership, whatever the business entity is. We also do the individual returns. We do the trust work, the planning work, the estate work, any A&A work they have to have. So we're really integrating our clients' finances. And over the years, you'll get to build a relationship with people. I have clients who I go on vacation with. I mean, as weird as that sounds, it's true. I mean, you get to know them very well, and a lot of the people are very good. They're good people that you'd want to, go to dinner with and whatnot. So you get to know them a little bit, and that's the most satisfying thing to me.
I'll just add to that as well. It's the same for us. Is I think when I first started, I didn't think I needed to, that I would have much client contact. But I think that's the key to everything we do all day is contact with clients, whether it's via email or via phone in a meeting, and with each other and with our staff. And so a lot of these clients, because you've worked on them for so many years, they know about your family. We know about their family. Like you said, there's a trust relationship between not only the client who maybe engaged you, but their staff, where they can call you for anything during the year. So it may not be the time that you're working on their project, but they'll still call you for help, or they'll email you. And I think for us that's our profession. It's services provided to clients, but that's where the satisfaction is helping them feel satisfied at the end of the day that we've helped them, even to say, hey, I don't know the answer, here's another professional that can help you with that. So it's just the customer satisfaction, and that's what we're known for, and that's how we stay in business as well.
The next question here, I think, is a very, very good question. This is from Carlos Avila.
Right up here in front.
Perfect. So, what can students who don't have experience in the field do to get a foot in the door at a firm?
So, Michael and I do most of the recruiting for our firm. So I think,
apropos that they asked you this question.
right. So, most of the time for us, when we come out to recruit or we interview, we don't expect students to have a lot of experience, you know,
Or any.
or any experience whatsoever. If you do, that's gravy. But for the most part, we expect students to have a foundation from school, you know, to have, you know, we do look at a GPA, but for the most part, we're looking at the core classes, like your tax classes, your auditing classes, to make sure, okay, you got a C in psychology, okay, that's fine. And that's why we do the interview process, to get to know why maybe you didn't have the best grades in other classes or whatnot. So we don't expect students to really have any experience, but we do expect them to communicate well in an interview. I think some of the stuff that we stress as well is all three of us belong to the Cal CPA, and Michael and I both serve on the board on the local Bakersfield chapter, is just to get out there and start networking now. You know, the more comfortable, you know, if you go to a few of the young and emerging professional events, you get to know a couple of us that attend them, you get a little bit more comfortable, so that when the interview process comes, you're a little bit more comfortable, not as nervous, you know, you can get out your answers a little bit better. I think just networking, having some, you know, good grades in the core classes really helps, but we don't expect the experience to be there. But, you know, seeing your face a couple of times at a couple of events, hey, I know this person, I've seen him a couple of times, I've chit-chatted with him, you're more comfortable asking me at a, you know, wine event or whatnot, a couple of questions about what I do, what's the best way to, you know, get an interview with your firm. It's just getting to know the business professionals around you, I think, will really help. And the more that you attend some of these networking events, not only through Cal CPA, but through the UAA, I think helps you to get a little bit of better business and professional repertoire with the professionals in the business. So, like we mentioned, it's all about communication, being personable. You know, it's like, okay, I remember him from 3 events that I went to. You know, you stick out now. So I think that's key.
Yeah, I would agree 100% on that. Really, if you want to leg up on somebody else, go to the networking events, talk to the professionals that are there, and honestly, if I have 2 candidates that are equal, and I've talked to you at 4 or 5 different events, and I've only met this one person in an interview, and I've liked you at those 5 events, then who am I going to take? I'm going to take the person that I know I've interacted with, and I know that I think we get along well in the firm. So I would almost treat those events as, I hate to say it, but I almost think they're more important than going to class sometimes. I mean, what you're doing is you're building those relationships that can help you for your entire future. And the classes are important, but if you have a class, it's time those networking events. I talk to your instructor in that class and see if you can miss it a few times to go to some of the UAA events, or more importantly to me, I think would be the Cal CPA events, the local chapter. I think we have them once a month. They're free to everybody to go to. And that's where you're going to find people like myself and Danera and Andrew. Joel Bach from Daniels Phillips is there a lot. You know, there's a lot of people. There's people from CBiz and a couple of South Salvador's from Daniels. He's there a lot. But you're going to meet these people at the firms, and generally these are people that do the recruiting. So, you know, go to the events, talk to the people, and that's really the best thing you can do, I think.
It makes you more comfortable to talk to the professionals as well, so that you're not as nervous. But some of these events as well are the staff that have just started, where you can say, like, hey, what did you do, or how do you like this firm better over that firm, or whatnot. So it goes from everything from meeting the recruiters to meeting staff individuals that could give you a little insight into the firm as to why they like it. So these are great events, and they're free to students. So I would take advantage of those.
If I can jump in for a second. For those of you who are not accounting focused, it's still a great idea to go to networking events like this. You never know who you might meet and how that's going to help you later in your career.
Right.
Exactly.
Especially because every business you possibly are associated with has an accounting component to it. So by extension, accountants are great networking nodes because they know businesses in all kinds of other areas as well. And as a case in point, you know, I'm a Stanford alum. This is not the Cal CPA event, but I went to a Stanford alumni event 2 years ago just to show up, to hang out, and, you know, go Cardinal. And I met 2 of the guest speakers who regularly come and talk to this class. Now, I got to know Danira through a different channel, but I wasn't looking for a guest speaker when I went to that event. I was just going to meet people, and they've turned out to be great guest speakers and great contacts for a lot of the students for mentoring and advice. So you never know who you might meet, and I suggest to all of you, not just the accounting people, the Cal CPA events are a great networking vehicle.
Right, and there are also, if you're interested in something else, there are other, young business professional groups in town that meet. So, I mean, just keep your eyes out and, maybe go on, if you're looking for an event, go look for something that's related specifically to what you want to do. And most likely there's a group of those people that meet regularly in town. So, it doesn't have to be just accounting, but just networking in general is probably the biggest thing you can do.
And I think Bakersfield is still a very small town. You don't realize it, but it is a very small town still. So that networking really pays off down the line, whether it's, it may not be tomorrow, but it may just be down the line in your career as well.
So the next question here, I'll answer this one. It's from Allison Burrito.
Allison's right over here.
Okay. So she's asking, what are the most common mistakes you see young professionals make earlier in their careers? The number one mistake people make, and I think these 2 are going to agree with that also, is not asking enough questions. We're hiring you. We expect you not to know anything. We want people to ask questions. You're getting into a field that all you've gone through is school, and not a whole lot of that is actually going to translate to the real world. So we want you to ask questions. The only way you're learning is through asking the questions. Don't assume you know something. If you have any doubt at all, ask somebody that's been there for 5 or 10 years, how you should do it or what the reasoning is behind why you're doing something. If you can ask the questions and you can understand the reasoning, then, really the sky's the limit.
I think I'll piggyback on that with also the next question, which this is what I made this mistake when I first started my career as well, but what I see a little bit is that young professionals, at least for accounting, don't start taking the CPA exam right away. And that was one thing that I didn't do, and it took me a long time to get it done because, life gets in the way, work gets in the way. So most of our staff are on their way to getting their CPA exam, but I think that's one of the things that some young professionals may make a mistake in the sense that, you're just finished with 4 years of school, or 5, the last thing you want to do is get back to studying and trying to pass an exam. But, the longer you wait, the longer it could potentially take, and the more stressful it gets because work gets in the way, boyfriend, girlfriend, children, marriage, anything of that sort. So that's one of the things that I have seen and that I myself made a mistake on, which is kind of related to the next question, is how stressful is working full-time and studying for the exam. So when you first start, it's not as stressful because we're just getting you into the mix of work and whatnot. So we have a few people that when there's a little bit of a downtime, if there's no work, they'll study in the office. And it can be a little bit stressful, but most of you have already multitasked here. You've gone to school and you may have a part-time or full-time job. Just think of it that way. But the CPA exam will definitely pay off. And as soon as you get it done, that's a lot better. Obviously, you just passed it.
You're the most recent one here.
Right,
Yes.
you're the most recent one. So.
No, it's the hardest thing for the accounting majors. It's the hardest thing you'll do. So we got staff taking them right now, and some of them are passing, most of them are failing. But it takes a couple of times to go through it, I think, to get the hang of it. But, really, it takes time. Yes?
I've heard for the accounting exam, implementation over the years, they've been adding more hours and more study hours.
It's not study hours so much as you have to have a certain number of units, of college-level units completed.
Is that after you finish school?
No, it can be before or after. There's just, you have to have a certain number of hours. And you also have certain hours in certain subjects. I don't know exactly what all the subjects are, but you have an ethics component, and the total is 150 semester units of schooling.
Right. So a lot, like we have 2 staff people, one that we just recently hired, that they just, they could have technically graduated in June of this year, but because they needed all those extra units to sit for the exam, they just stayed in school for another year. So yes, you can graduate with the bachelor's and then come back and do that, but I think that's just as hard sometimes with trying to juggle, full-time work and.
Right, because you're going to be studying for the exam and going to school and working full-time. Doesn't leave a lot of room for the other things you're passionate about in your life, and those are just as important as anything else.
Okay.
Just to point out, by the way, that question
That
on the
was
CPA's
Armando's.
hand was from Armando Camacho.
Yes,
You want
that
to
was your
raise your
question.
hand? That's Armando.
We've met Armando.
Oh, okay, cool.
I guess we'll go to the next one. Melissa Cervantes.
Well, that's right here.
Okay. What does an average day look like for somebody in your position? We
There's
should
no
probably
average day.
I think we should probably split that between what does an average day look like for somebody who's a manager or supervisor, and then what an average day looks like for a staff person as well. That's probably just as important as we get.
So I'll just briefly explain what an average day for me is like, although no
No
day is
average day.
ever the same, to be honest. Like any other job, you might have your goals for the day and you just don't even get to them. So as a manager for me, I may be working with a couple of different staff or different supervisors in scheduling some jobs. When are we going to go out to the client's office? Or I may be reviewing some work that they finished on an audit. I could be doing recruiting. Yesterday, Michael and I and another audit manager were doing scheduling for the upcoming year of going through all the jobs and scheduling and trying to figure things out for the next year. And then we headed out to a board meeting. So I think at this level it's a little bit different than what you guys would see, but just so you know that even at a staff level, no one day is the same. It's ever changing. Like I said, clients call you out of the blue, and you're not working on their project, but they call you for a small project or they need help with anything. So it's a lot of, honestly, just personal interaction, whether it's with, the other audit manager for scheduling and with Mike, or with clients that are calling you, emailing you. I mean, I spent most of my morning this morning emailing people. So that's short for me, just because I feel like, you guys probably are looking for more of what a staff would do.
Yes. So, same thing for like my day. I went to a client this morning. I have 51 unread emails right now since 8 a.m. this morning. So it's like Daenerys said, at our level, you have a list of things you want to get done and you never get to it. It's always changing. You're always running from one fire to the next. But for our staff do both A&A and tax work. Some firms you may only do A&A or tax work, but you're going to have probably 3 or 4 or 5, maybe 10 jobs going on at one time, where you're working on one thing. When you get to a stopping point, you have questions. You'll ask those questions to somebody while they're getting the answers. You're going to move on to the next thing. You're going to start working on it. Some days you're going to be out of the client's office all day long for 8, maybe 10 hours. Other days you're going to be in the office for a week, 2 weeks at a time working on tax returns. But one thing we can say is that it's never boring. It's never the exact same thing. There's always a new project coming along, and all projects are different in one regard or another. I don't think we have any 2 clients that are even close to being identical. So you're always looking at new things. You're learning new things. But there's not so much of that. You're getting pulled off one thing every 5 minutes to do something else. You're able to focus a little more as a staff and not have that stress of having 250 things going on at once. You only have to worry about 5 or 10.
And I think as a brand new staff, and I feel like get this from our staff, is that, going from having this experience of being in an audit for a week or 2 weeks and then moving on to a tax project or going back to that audit, or getting to be on a new audit, a new client, that it's always a little bit exciting because, okay, I haven't been on this job. We have a new audit that is based down in Santa Monica, so some of our staff just recently went over there and stayed over there for a few days, and I'm sure they'll go back in December and January. So I think as a staff person, some of it, I mean, I may be overstepping it, it's a little bit exciting because they get hands-on experience. They work with Mike, they'll work with Andrew, they'll work with myself. So that's another thing that at our firm, because staff get to work on both sides of the spectrum, that you get to work with different individuals all the time. So Mike and I could be working with the same staff person on 2 different projects. So there is no such thing as an average day.
Cherie Dickerson. Oh, and if anybody has any questions as we're going through this, feel free to ask. We don't have to sit here and give you a monologue all day.
Right. So
I've found in general that my students are a little shy to speak up, so that's exactly
Okay,
why
why
we
we do
prepare
this.
those questions beforehand.
Okay.
But yeah, Lily, right here.
oh,
Oh, Lily, I'm sorry.
Lily. Sorry. Lily,
Oh,
you said
I'm
Cherie.
sorry.
Lily, it's hard to read there. Lily,
Okay.
Cherie, and then Shire Ann.
So Lily, so this is for Danira then. As an auditor, how do you go about being unbiased when auditing a firm's financial statements, knowing they have the power to hire or fire you?
So one of the additional requirements that they have to sitting for the CPA exam is ethics classes. So as a CPA, you have ethical standards that you abide by. You know, part of it is confidentiality. Part of it is being basically independent. So even though some of these clients we've had for many years and whatnot, you know, we as a firm we look at our clients closely as far as what type of clients we have. So if we felt we had an unethical client where if I went to them and said, you know, I think you're doing this incorrectly, or, you know, you're not doing this right, or we see something wrong in your books or what we're auditing, that if the client were to come back and fire us, that may not necessarily be a bad thing, because in that sense, we don't want to have that type of client, you know. So we have to abide by our own standards of being ethical. If I can't be unbiased, then I'm not doing my job as a CPA. I could literally lose my license and my livelihood. So we have our own standards as a CPA, just as having had our certificate and being licensed. We have our standards as a firm as well. And part of it is to be independent, which includes being unbiased. And if, you know, like one of the first questions is how do you approach clients with tough questions? You know, if there is no resolution, then the relationship could end, but at that point, it may not be a client we want if they cannot, you know, be reasonable about what our expectations are and what our standards are for either audit or tax or anything like that.
You don't want to have, audit side, tax side, it doesn't matter. You don't want to have a client who's going to put you in a position where you don't feel comfortable. If you have a client that's doing that, it's probably best to part ways and let somebody else deal with them. So. Okay. Now, Sharia. This one's Shira. I said it wrong again.
It's okay.
What type of skills do you recommend to students who are looking to become auditors?
I think what's key for any of the fields or any of the departments is communication, is to have good communication skills, whether it's with the manager in charge, whether it's with the client, whether it's with the other staff people. Communication is key regardless. Even if you say, I don't know, that's communication. We always stress communication across the board, whether it comes from the partners down to the staff, in the opposite direction from staff up to partners. So communication is key. And I think we mentioned earlier, you know, asking a lot of questions. That's part of communication. So as far as being an auditor, it's the personal skills with the client, the communication, and as you start off as a staff person doing audits, being detail-oriented. That's probably one of the keys is being able to use the basis of what you've learned here at school to say, okay, this doesn't look right, this doesn't make sense. So being able to just use some of those technical skills, even if you ask the question and you didn't know up front, you know, we explain it to you, we go through the process, and being able to apply what you've learned on one job, being able to apply it to the next job. So that's very key, is to be able to build that basis from one job to the next, and being able to use that information that even though this is a different client, a different industry, okay, I learned how to do this piece of audit here, I may be able to use it here. So I think communication is key, but also just being able to technically pick up learning, basically being able to learn from one to the next. Like Andrew mentioned, we all make mistakes, but being able to use what you've learned going forward is key for auditors.
The two other things that I want to mention on that is that it's also important, if you want to work on something, work on your analytical abilities. And this goes for accounting students, marketing students, it doesn't matter. If you're in business, you need to be able to look at a data set and understand what you're looking at and what the relationships between those numbers should be. You need to be able to look at it to be able to determine where you need to make changes. If you're on the management side, maybe where you need to cut costs, maybe where a product line may not make sense anymore. On the accounting side, looking at a client's books and being able to say, well, it doesn't make sense that, maybe their payroll is only 5% of their sales, but it's the biggest component that goes into the product. So looking at things like that and being able to quickly determine where you need to focus your time, and I think that's across business in general. On a specific note, if you don't know how to use Excel well, start learning Excel. And once again, that's not just accounting, that's any business. Excel is a very powerful tool. Most people do not know how to use it very well. So if you have free time, go down and get one of those Excel for Dummy books. I bought some for our staff and had them read them, but get those Excel for Dummy books. Where you go through and make spreadsheets and you learn different things. You learn macros, stuff like that. But so learn how to use Excel well, and that'll make your life a whole lot easier in the future.
And I'm just going to add a couple more. Oh, there you go.
So keep that was your information systems where they spend a third of the time on Access. Yeah, you're never going to use Access. Sorry.
Actually, we've switched our required IS class to be 100% Excel.
Okay, good. See, I think that's a great idea. That was something the accounting profession has or the accounting program here has a group that gets together, a business group that comes here, and we talked about what we're saying. And that was one of the things we actually talked about was that information systems class where they were focusing on Excel Access. I don't know what the other one was, but really that's perfect because Excel is going to be the biggest. You're going to use that every single day, pretty much for most of the day, no matter what you're doing. So
I'd just like to add on a couple more skills beyond just, and this probably goes to a lot of different business careers, being able to multitask, especially at our level at an accounting firm. It goes back to what an average day is. There's no average day. You're not, where you might be in the private sector, an AP clerk, an AR clerk, you can do the same thing day in, day out, month in, month out. At our job at an accounting firm, you're going to be doing 10, 15, 20 different things. And you may be working on one thing, a manager comes in and says, I need you to switch back over to this. So you may have a manager going, where are we on this project over here? Being able to know where you're at on all the jobs, have questions ready, and be able to bounce back and forth and stay on top of them. And then it goes along with the communication up to your managers. And I just wrote some other things down. Being teachable and adaptable. We can do a lot with people, maybe if they don't have the best grades, but if they're teachable, I almost prefer a teachable B student than a non-teachable A student. Because if I can teach you how to do something and you learn from that and you apply it to the next job, that's you're going to go far on that. So those are just some other key things that I wrote down here.
Okay. Elise. Is Elise around?
Ariel.
You read the second one.
Okay.
You have to look in the middle of the name field
Yeah.
there. It's
All right.
last name, comma, first name, comma, space, middle name.
So is Ariel around?
Right there.
Okay. For somebody who's a business major but not concentrating in accounting, what would you say is the most important and useful things to remember from the financial and management classes? I'm assuming is why that ends. What I would say is learn how to read a financial statement. You wouldn't believe how many people in business don't know how to read financial statements. I mean, it really is amazing. But if you learn how to read the financial statement, learn or remember, how the balance sheet works. What are you going to be receiving currently? What do you have to pay out currently? What's your cost of goods sold? Those items on the income statement. you know how to use a financial statement. I think that's probably the number one thing to take away. You can hire people like us to do the tax work and whatnot. You don't need to remember all that stuff. But remember how to read your financial. It can give you so much information, but you have to know how to read it for it to make any sense to you. Jose.
Yep.
Okay. Who was the best accountant professional you ever worked with? And in your opinion, what made that person so great?
This guy right here.
Thanks, Andrew.
He was being funny.
It was my wonderful personality.
I don't know, like for me, I think, because obviously I've been in the profession quite a bit of time, I don't think there's one specific person, to be honest. Obviously, there's some clients that are better to work with than others. But I think for the most part, just looking at how, I guess the people above me as far as the managers that were there when I first started and some of the partners, that I work with directly as to how they conduct business, how they treat clients, going to client meetings with them or going to board meetings with them. This is how you act professionally. So there isn't one specific person. I think everyone, when you first start, you kind of find your mentor or mentors, the people that you fit a little bit better with personally, or even on a social level, or even on a work basis level. I think I've learned from every client, either whether it's what to do or what not to do. I think when I first started, I felt a lot of these professionals I just learned from, just because I was straight out of school. So I think it's not just one specific person. I think I've just learned and felt that some of these professionals that I've worked with have been great people to work with in general. So
You have, in a firm like ours, it takes really all different kinds of people to make it work. You have those people that are kind of like the rainmakers, the ones that bring in a lot of business. Generally, those people aren't necessarily great technically. So you have people that are really, really good technically. They can do the work and do the work at a high level to grow the reputation of the firm. You have to have people that are good at client relationships, interact with the clients, and kind of build those relationships, keep them coming back, give you the referrals. But there are people out there, thinking of one gentleman over the coast who is kind of all the above, and he has done very, very well for himself. I think Eric's practice is $4.5–5 million by himself. So he turns away a substantial amount of work because they're not the clients he wants to work on. But those people are very few and far between. You really can't build yourself into one of those. The key is to understand what you're good at and what you're not good at, and find other people that complement you in those areas. So that's what really makes somebody great in the profession, is being able to find the people that complement them and can do the things that they can't.
I think just to add on that, I think it takes a village, the same. And as a staff at the firm, I was able to, you work with everyone. You're not, designated to a specific manager, so you end up working with all the managers, all the partners, and you learn from them, you take that from them, and you kind of develop your own thing that works for you. But I think we do a good job at the firm of, matching the professional with, a client. We sometimes do make changes where we may switch from a manager to another manager that may work well better with the client. And, we're all working together to serve the clients in the best way possible. And you're learning from everyone and kind of developing your own system.
Yeah, I'm going to actually combine the next two. So Stephanie and Candace. So they asked, what errors, mistakes happened during your career that made you either change your career path or made you more determined to get where you are today? And the other one is, what was your first career move once you graduated and was it effective? So I think these kind of go hand in hand.
Right. I think, as I mentioned before, for myself, because I was so tired of school, I didn't take sitting for the exam seriously at first. I thought, okay, I'm going to give myself a summer break. Well, I'm going to give myself a winter break. And so I did not take sitting for the exam seriously until probably a few years after I started. And obviously by that point, I was a little bit further up in the firm. I had more responsibility at work, more responsibility at home, which is personal relationships. And I think it got harder for me, more stressful, because I didn't just do the exam when I got out of school. So that was one of the things that I felt that had I gotten some advice in that sense, like just get it done, that maybe I would have taken it more seriously and gotten it done within the first 2 years that I was at the firm. So it didn't hinder me personally or career-wise at the firm, because obviously even when you pass if you were to pass all 4 parts of the exam today, you're not going to be promoted to senior tomorrow. You have to prove yourself within the firm that you have the technical skills, the customer service skills, et cetera, et cetera. But we obviously look for you to have the CPA license as you progress towards like a senior level. So within the firm, I was still able to progress, but I did have a few clients ask, are you a CPA yet? So there's that trust of, okay, wait a minute, this person's not a CPA yet, So I think that was the one mistake that I felt that I did, that, that after a few years I was determined and thought, okay, I really need to get myself in gear and work towards it and just focus on getting it done, so.
I think one of the big first career moves you're going to make, besides picking a firm or some place to work in general, is after you've worked there for a few years, the question becomes, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? Especially in public accounting. Do you want to stay in public accounting? Do you want to go to private? Do you want to get out of accounting altogether? There's people that go all 3 ways. So that's the big decision that you're going to have to make at some point in the future. And obviously we've all stayed in,
Right.
at least to date. But
But I think it's also, just because public accounting wasn't for you, I don't feel people should feel as failures just because, there's certain aspects and certain things about a CPA firm and public accounting that may just not function with how you're used to working in a job or a career or your personal life or whatnot. So it's a great start for those that decide that it's not for them, but it's not for everybody. So, don't feel like a failure when, okay, this isn't for me, to be in public accounting, but because it's not for everybody.
I'll add on that too. My first real job, quote unquote, because my first real job was being the sales manager for my dad's company, but it's a family business, so I don't quite count that the same way. My first real job was actually with Price Waterhouse. I was on the consulting side, not the accounting side. However, I would even go so far as to say, there are only a small handful of people I worked with at Price Waterhouse at that time that are still with the firm.
I think that's
the
probably
majority of people spend a tour of duty, as it were, in public accounting,
Yep.
and then move on to where their true passion is.
I'm going to use that quote now towards
You guys go right ahead. But a vast majority of people that I worked with went on to really successful things, but they were in particular industries that they had a passion for.
And public accounting is a really good place to gain knowledge really quickly, and then you move on to what you're passionate about. If it's not public accounting, that's fine. The reality is that it's not for everybody, and in order to be a successful career for everybody else, it can't be where everybody else lands. There has to be, there can't be 5,000 people in public accounting in Bakersfield. It just wouldn't support itself. So it's a necessary thing, but it's also a great place to build knowledge.
If you have some experience at a CPA firm and your CPA license, it definitely gets you at the top of the resumes for anything else that you're doing, because CPAs are very well trusted.
I'm sure you guys have seen on job ads where it says preference given to CPA. Really, that's what it comes down to, is having those 3 letters after your name it might not seem like much, but it is a very big deal in the eyes of a lot of people. The next one's from Jose.
The other Jose.
The other Jose. Okay, this is a question for Andrew. Do you consider it better working with people before taxable events happen or after?
Before. In fact, I just had a client last week call me up and, well, they did some things on a C Corp level that they might not be too happy about once we dive in and figure out the solutions for them. But always, you know, in any kind of business you're at, if you can give your accountant a heads up of what you're going to do before you do it, it's literally a 5-minute conversation that could save you a ton of headache. You may not even be thinking of the ramifications of what you are doing, and most small business people don't. And always have, I would recommend, have things done professionally, like when you set up a corporation or a partnership. I would recommend not having your friend across the street set it up. It's worth the extra money to have someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, and this goes for not just accounting, but also if you're in business and you're doing anything that's not normally what you do, that any type of weird transaction, don't just contact your accountant. Contact your attorney as well. You need to have a relationship with an accountant and with an attorney that you can call up and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Is there an impact? And they can tell you, yes, we need to talk, or no, go ahead, that's fine.
It's worth the fees. It is.
But pretty much anything in life that you do that is not what you're normally doing, talk to somebody that knows what they're doing before you do it.
Not stress that.
I mean, yeah, I mean, like big letters. Don't do it.
There's horror stories out there. You don't want to be part of that.
Okay.
Hopefully I scared everyone.
So there's a lot on here about work-life balance between a CPA. I think we've probably seen it 4 or 5 times. So do you want to discuss those?
Sure.
Art?
So, at least with our firm, you know, our motto is family first. You know, you take care of your family first, because if you don't do that, if home life is not good or you're stressed about something, it's going to carry on into your work and your work product. I feel that with our firm, you know, I've enjoyed the flexibility. I have a 5-year-old child, so earlier today I was at a kindergarten Thanksgiving feast with 23 small children. So I think it's that work-life balance of, you know, if there's something that you need to do personally, as far as what type of career you want, what kind of job you want, I feel at whatever age, everyone wants a work-life balance. With accounting, at least at our level of the 3 of us, you know, we're in a management group level where our flexibility is a little bit more because we're kind of in control of our own time. You know, staff may have a little bit less control of their own time. Where, you know, I felt that I could go to my son's Thanksgiving feast, you know, still get some stuff done, come out here as well, you know, and that's my work-life balance. You know, I may have to leave a little bit earlier today because I help out with my husband's football dinners on Thursdays. So I feel that this career has allowed me that work-life balance. You know, it allows me to do what I like to do with my family, still get my work done, still feel satisfied that my clients are happy with my work and what I've done. And I feel this profession allows for that. Obviously, there is the horror tax season, busy season, but, you know, that's 3 months out of the year. And
even during tax season,
right.
You know, if you have someplace where you need to be, then I mean, we expect you to be there. If your kid's having a soccer game or something, don't come to the office and miss your kid's soccer game. Go to the soccer game and then come in after and work your hours then. I mean, if you need to leave in the middle of the day, you need to leave at 5 o'clock to go do something and then come back later, that's fine. I mean, everybody here is an adult, and in public accounting, you're kind of treated as an adult. We don't monitor your time. We don't have time clocks when you come in and when you leave. So there is some flexibility there. The key there is that for staff people, we ask that you be there for the most part between 8 to 5. There's some people will come in at 7 and leave at 4. If you wanted to come in at 9 and leave at 6, it's probably not an issue. But you need to be there for the most part during the core hours because we want you to be asking those questions. We want you to be learning. But at the same time, we understand there are other things that should be more important than accounting. And they are for us as well. I mean, I have 3 kids, and my life doesn't revolve around accounting. one note on that is if you go to a Big Four, PwC or something like that, that it's not necessarily going to be the case.
And I think what you mentioned earlier, that, you know, some of the people that you work with there are no longer there, is some of our partners go to at least two of our partners go to like a management partner type of conference in New York City. And I think it was last year when they came back and said that these big firms, national firms, are, you know, they may be demanding of 70 hours per week, not just during, you know, busy season, that is throughout the whole year, that staff accountants and, you know, a little bit above get so burnt out that they leave these big national firms and leave accounting completely. So with us, you know, when we say, okay, public accounting may not fit you, someone may leave and go to a private, you know, firm and work as a controller or as a staff accountant there, you know, they're still in the profession. These big firms are burning out these people that the people will leave and into different professions. They'll leave the accounting profession, period. So we know that, for example, in San Luis Obispo and Los Angeles, some of the bigger cities, that's where they recruit most of their time, and they're coming in and getting students in the junior year. So
Actually, freshman years.
yeah, freshman year they make them sign agreements that they will work for them. So so if anything, you know, we're kind of a mid-sized firm here, maybe one of the larger firms in Bakersfield, but that's where you want to get most of your experience.
At least in our opinion.
At least in our opinion, yes. Not just us, but some of the other larger firms here in this area versus, you know, going to LA or San Francisco, those type of areas.
Marisol asks Andrew, when you started working right out of college, what did you struggle with? What did you struggle with the most on the job?
I think one of the biggest things.
If I can jump in for 1 second?
Yeah.
Just to make sure that everybody gets their name called. I think the work-life balance question mainly came from Elizabeth and Christina. So thank you guys for that question. Sorry, go ahead.
I think one of the biggest struggles for a new staff right away is dealing with stress. You know, if you can't effectively deal with stress, you're going to get burned out. And I think that's what happens to a lot of incoming staff. It goes along with everything we said today, multitasking, deal with different things. You're not doing the same thing every day. You need to build upon your knowledge. There's demands of you, client interaction, communication to managers. If you're not able to handle that well, and you know it starts eating up inside of you, you're going to burn out in a year or two, and then accounting might leave a sour taste in your mouth. Just knowing how to deal with that, knowing, you know, what you are, what you can fix, what you can't, you know, all those sayings. It's important. Know how to handle the stress. Know what you can deal with, know what you can't deal with. I think are the biggest keys to a successful career in accounting, probably businesses in general.
And I would say that when I came out of school, probably the biggest thing for me was that you start looking at these and you have no idea what you're doing. Absolutely none. You look at something, you go, I don't even know where to start. So the key is just, you know, break it down into smaller aspects and then understand that every single one of us has been here. If you go to a firm, every person in the firm has been on that first day and not known where to start or what to do. So ask the questions, you know, learn as much as you can. That's really the key, I believe, is that, and then, like Andrew said, understand things you can do something about and things you can't. Things you can't do anything about, you can't stress about it too much because you can never fix them. It's not healthy for you.
Just learn from it. After my first week of training, as the new staff, I wanted to go to the third floor and jump off. So I always tell new staff, if you feel that way, you're on the right track. No, but everyone, you know, we've all been there, so we know we don't expect you to know everything right off the bat. And I think that goes along with the stress. Take a deep breath. Everyone's there to help you. Hopefully, you're at a firm that wants to help you and a business that wants to help you, and you'll go far.
Just to give you guys a heads up, we're on semesters now, so our class periods are a bit shorter.
Okay.
We've got about 10 minutes left.
Okay, are there any other ones you want us to hit for sure?
No, I'll look while you pick the next one. Go ahead.
Okay. How about this one right here from Sandra? How did you decide between audit and tax? What reasons were there?
Okay. Well, I started, I didn't do an internship with the firm. I think I was just in La La Land when I was in school, didn't, thought I was going to graduate and then get a job versus some, like I suggested, networking now, meeting your professionals. I was actually pretty lucky. So I started at Burbage during the summer. So I was hired on in July. So during that time frame, most of the work was audit work. So I started with audit work. I didn't do a tax internship, so I didn't do taxes. So I did that, and because I had audit experience, when busy season came around, tax season, I was put on more audits, and so I was actually out of town for most part of that time for a huge client that we had out of town. And so I felt like I dove into audit a little bit more just from the get-go. So I think it was just a nature of when I started and what kind of work I did. There was less staff at that time. A couple of people moved out of town during that time frame, that there was less people. So I feel like I got a lot more tax audit experience right from the get-go. So I think it was just the nature of what the firm was, what the staffing situations at the time. And I thought at that time that audit was more customer-oriented, where it was more face-to-face time. And I felt that that was one of my strengths. And so, I liked going out to clients' offices and being there for, days at a time and whatnot. So I felt that was better fit for me, not really realizing that everything we do, whether it's tax or audit, is customer service-based.
What we do for our staff, we expect them to come in and they're going to work in tax. They're going to do tax and audit for the first 2.5, 3 years. And then from there, they're going to make a determination what they want to go into, what they want to spend the rest of their career doing. It doesn't make sense for me to never determine that, Jose, you're going to do tax. You may hate tax, but that's fine. You're going to do it anyway. So I think what we find is that people generally, you'll gravitate towards one or the other. I can't stand audit. It's incredibly boring to me. So
It's not.
So, like I say, to me, it's incredibly boring. You never can't fathom spending your day doing tax work.
Right.
So, you're just going to naturally gravitate towards one another and just push to make your career in what you enjoy. Nobody wants to do something they don't enjoy for 40 years.
I cherry-picked a couple last
Okay.
ones here.
Sure.
I'm going to try and cram in 3.
Okay?
I thought Armando Perez's question was interesting, we haven't gotten there yet. What is the biggest audit fraud you've run across?
I don't think I've actually had myself. I mean, I know it sounds exciting to find fraud in a client, but it is not, because it means that there's a lot of other implications. I haven't come across one myself in my jobs. To be honest, most of the times our clients catch it first before we even go out to do an audit. We've had one client in particular that was like submitting employee reimbursements to get reimbursed for expenses that had paid for things that were personal and not for the client, not for the business. And I believe that the client kind of suspected it first, and then we went in and did some work on it to figure out what the dollar of the fraud that he was doing, and obviously it wasn't in the millions of dollars. I think we had another one that we were kind of close on finding out, but payroll fraud, paying themselves a little bit extra. The person that processed the payroll was paying themselves a little bit extra money.
So I'm going to give you a story here real quick about one, not that we ran across, but one that happened within the county here recently, probably about 6 years ago. My wife worked in the office for Kern County Parks Department. The auditor's office of the county went out there, and they were out there for 3 or 4 weeks going through their records. So they told the office manager that they were going to come back. This is Christmas Eve. It was a Friday, Christmas Eve. They were going to come back out on Tuesday and take all the records back to the auditor's office. Well, that night, the Parks Department building burned to the ground. Fire started in her office. Come to find out, the the way they were processing cash receipts, they would get cash, they'd bring it to her, and she would deposit it in the bank and do all the paperwork. And she was in charge of receiving the cash, putting it in the bank, reconciling the bank, posting everything to the ledger. So she had complete control over the cash. Nobody thought this lady that was making $38,000 a year, had 7 kids, would take yearly trips to Hawaii, always drove a brand new BMW or Mercedes and traded them in every year. So they estimated over the last 5 years she had taken like $300,000 in cash. So just goes to go to show you got to have good controls. If you don't have controls, it's way too easy for somebody to do that.
That's a big one. I'm gonna combine 2 here, and then actually I'm gonna combine a couple questions here for the last 5 minutes that we've got. So one group of questions came from Christina Lopez and Marco Silva, who are both kind of right next to each other there. What one thing do you still struggle with? What have you done to stay positive? And have you read any good books lately that have helped you through your career? That's one question. And then the second question, which came from Devin, what would you have done differently at the beginning of your career? I think those 2 questions are good ones to end on.
Okay, so I'll start with what would I have done differently? I think I would have joined an organization like House CPA sooner rather than later. You know, I just started being on the board maybe 5 years ago. I'm actually on the state board right now as well. I think I would have started that process a little bit sooner rather than later. You know, I started everything after I had my child, so that obviously is a juggling process. So I think I would have started the networking process, just meeting new people, just networking with other CPAs as well a lot sooner. And what was the other part of the question? Sorry.
The other one was just things that you still struggle with as a professional. What do you do to stay positive? Have you read any good books that helped you in your career?
I think because I like what I do, that's how you stay positive. You know, not every day is a good day in the sense, you know, some days are stressful. If you have things going on at home as well or whatnot, you know, I think just in general, because I like what I do, this is my career, you know, that's a way of staying positive. You know, it's not always going to be, you know, sunshines and rainbows every day, but that's with any job. So, you know, there is a light at the end of the tunnel after busy tax season. You know, I think because we're all going through the same stresses and trying to get things done, it's like I can go to Andrew, I can go to Mike, and, you know, we can talk about the daily struggles because everyone in the firm is going through the same thing. So that's a way to stay positive in that sense.
I kind of agree with Danira that probably the thing that I still struggle with and wish that I had focused on earlier in my career is networking. I'm generally a very shy person. I like to talk to people. So I've been putting myself in situations where I can't do that, and I've become a lot less shy in regards to that. But I wish I would have done it 10 years ago instead of 7 years ago. I mean, it's one of the things you have to work on, and I wish I would have started on it a little sooner. So I think networking is a big deal. And on a side note, I'm glad that she mentioned that it's tax season, not busy season.
It's busy.
Inside joke, thanks.
Yes. They call it tax season because on audit, we're just as busy as tax people because we have a lot of year-end, calendar year 1231 jobs that have to be done during the January through April timeframe. So we've renamed it busy season because we're all busy. As far as books that I've read, I think I don't remember what it's called. It's part of a leadership class that we're taking, and it goes through some of the management skills, some of the things that you should be working on. So that's the only book that I've kind of touched on recently. Books make me fall asleep, to be honest.
Andrew, anything to add?
I think the balance between, we always talk about passion, find what you're passionate. I disagree a little bit on that. Find a job that you can love. There's going to be good days and bad days. There's going to be things you like and don't like about every single job. It's not always greener. There's things about the accounting job that I don't like, but there's also plenty of things that I do like. At the end of the day, the things I like outweigh the things I don't, and that's why I continue to stay in there. So, make it work for your life, fine.
Okay, it's exactly 2:15, so let's
Perfect.
let's give everybody a big round of applause. Thank you all so much once again for coming. This is really a treat to have you here.
No, thank you for inviting us.
For everybody, before you go, have a good Thanksgiving week. We are not meeting next Tuesday or Thursday, so you've got the week off. I do want to remind you, there are some peer evaluation parts of your final grade. So take a look at the syllabus again over the Thanksgiving break to refamiliarize yourself with the peer evaluation stuff you need to do for your group members, okay? That's it. Have a great Thanksgiving week, and I will see you guys all in about 10 days.